assignments we might be put on. I do think that the more faithful that we are on this earth, the higher level of service will be involved in the afterlife. And I think that's real clear from the parable that Jesus told in Luke 19, verses 11 to 26. And in that parable, the master says to his servant, because you have been faithful, you shall have authority over 10 cities. And so this may relate to the teaching throughout the New Testament, Jan, that those of us who are believers will actually reign with Christ. A lot of people don't really think about that very much, but we're going to reign with Christ according to Revelation 5:10. And then in Revelation 22:5, we're told that we will reign forever and ever. And part of that will apparently involve judging over the angels. 1 Corinthians 6, verses 2 and 3, we find the Apostle Paul asking, do you not know that the saints will judge the world? Do you not know that we are to judge angels? And so that's another aspect of our service. And we'll also be involved in meaningful fellowship with other believers. And Jan, I'm not just talking about Christian loved ones. I'm also talking about all the greats of church history, people like Augustine, John Calvin, Martin Luther, and all the others, as well as the biblical saints, people like Adam and Noah and Abraham and Moses and Joshua and John and Matthew and all of the others. Ask questions of them. What about this Bible verse? What do you mean there?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine Ron sitting down with David?
Oh, man, I just can't wait.
And asking him and talking to him about all of his time running away from Saul. I have this quote from my father that I think is so great. He says, God says he's prepared a place for you. The picture is of a great oriental palace, very popular in those days. This palace has many, many rooms in it, luxurious suites all the way down to closet-sized accommodations. You are going to inherit a room in the palace which is in direct proportion to your life of service for Christ. In other words, salvation is God's gift to everyone, but the blessings of heaven and eternity are individually bestowed on the basis of one's life and dedication and service for Christ. Okay.
That recognizes that there are Christians who are faithful and there are Christians who are carnal, and God is a perfect judge.
Well, there's no nights out, correct? No sleep. I don't know about food. I know there's fruit up there, but no night and no sleep, right?
Well, that's right, but just think about the significance of that. We're told that the New Jerusalem has all kinds of precious jewels scattered throughout, and the city itself is constructed of transparent gold, and there's no need of the sun or the moon to shine because God's glory lights up the eternal city, which is transparent. I don't know if you can imagine in your mind what that might look like, but just imagine this city that's 1,400 by 1,400 by 1,400 miles, full of precious jewels and made of transparent gold, and this incredible glory of God, all that light just shining straight through it. And you know what? I think that words are inadequate to describe how great it's going to be. I think that those are the best words John could find in the book of Revelation, but I think that the reality is probably even more cool.
Ron, a question here that I think some listener may have on their mind, and that is, we talked a little bit about the new heavens and the new earth. We have not talked about the millennial kingdom. Are they the same thing, new heavens and new earth, the millennial kingdom? Are they separate?
No, they're separate.
Yeah.
They're distinct. What happens is this. Christ will come again at the second coming following the 7-year tribulation period, and at that point there will be what's called the judgment of the nations, which is Matthew 25, verses 31 to 46. Christ invites into his millennial kingdom those people who treated his brothers correctly. I personally believe those brothers are the 144,000 of Revelation 7. But depending upon how you treated those brothers, that will be an indication as to whether you're a believer or not a believer. And so believers will be invited directly into the millennial kingdom where Christ will reign for 1,000 years. Now it's at the end of the 1,000-year period that Satan is released from the abyss for one final rebellion, at which time Christ instantly squashes that rebellion. And that's when the great white throne judgment takes place, which is the judgment of the wicked dead. And it's after that, Jan, that God creates the eternal state. And the eternal state is what we've been talking about up until the present moment.
Okay.
The eternal state is talking about the new Jerusalem on the new earth, which exists in the new heavens, which God will create. And that's going to be the dwelling place of Christians for all eternity.
Well, we're going to get to the great white throne judgment, and that may end up being the last segment of the program, because where I want to head now, so that we have enough time to cover it, and Most listeners know that there's been some controversy over the years with what's called near-death experiences. And I'm going to play a soundbite here. It's a 3-minute bite of Dr. Mary Neal. If anybody's convincing, this woman is. She's an orthopedic surgeon, and she went to heaven and came back to earth. And then I'd like to discuss this, at least probably for the balance of this segment.
I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I analytically was thinking, well, feels like my tibia probably broke, but I wasn't screaming. I didn't have pain. I didn't have fear. I didn't have that sense of ear hunger. I know I've been underwater too long to be alive, yet I feel more alive than I've ever felt. And this is more real than anything I've ever experienced. As my body broke free from my boat, I felt my spirit break free from my body, and I rose up and out of the river.
Mary looked down on the river as she left her body. Then she was met by a group of heavenly beings.
They were absolutely overjoyed to see me and greet me, and I them. I knew that they had known me and loved me as long as I existed, and I knew that I had known them and loved them, and I knew that they had been sent by God. They began taking me down this exceptionally beautiful path that was brilliant, and they were taking me toward this great dome structure of sorts that not only was exploding with beauty and color, but it was exploding with this absolute love of God that